This is The Comms Exchange, a podcast by 3090 Marketing. Each episode, we sit down with colleagues, leaders, and changemakers to share stories and lessons from the field of community and economic development. Together, we explore how communications shapes strategy, builds trust, and drives momentum, because every project, every partnership, every breakthrough begins the same way, with a conversation. Hi, and welcome to the Comms Exchange, where we explore the people, the ideas shaping how we build, connect, and communicate. I'm Rachel Ledet.
And I'm Christiane Bernini.
Today's guest is someone who I've actually had the chance to work with, and we just really thought it would be a great opportunity to have him on the show because I've gotten to see his work firsthand. About 10 years ago, I was working for a commercial general contractor, and we brought in a presentation coaching company to bring some leadership value to our field and office teams at this contracting firm. And I have to say that the teams were a little skeptical at first. You know, who are these outsiders and what are they going to make us do? And so we had these technical folks, these problem solvers, these people who were really in the field. They were very comfortable in their jobs, but not exactly comfortable sitting in front of a stage or an audience. And so we spent this day-long process working with this coaching team. And by the end of the day, we really saw some things change. Some of those people were really reluctant. And by the end, people were participating, they were volunteering, they were practicing, they were laughing. And really, the field guys and also the project managers who work largely in offices, they were more confident, more equipped to be able to share their expertise with clients or potential clients. And so that experience was really impactful, and we were able to kind of see a beginning to end sort of full circle moment that day. And Kene was one of the coaches. So we thought it'd be great to bring in Kene Iloenyosi to our show to talk about AEC experts and kind of that communication process.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And it's amazing that it's been 10 years. Wow.
It's amazing how time can go by.
Yeah.
Well, today, Kene is the author of 3 leadership books and co-founder of Talent Revolution, where he helps leaders and organizations build what he calls an internal leadership operating system. His work focuses on helping people understand who they are, why they lead, and how they show up so they can create greater impact with their teams, clients, and organizations.
And we do a lot of strategic planning with our clients at 3090. And so communicating and leading, it just sort of all ends up going together. I mean, some people kind of consider leadership development like an HR thing, but we know as communicators that how people show up at work through authenticity, through being their best selves, that really ties heavily into strategic growth and to marketing. And so this is just a really great topic for us today. I would like to also mention that Kene's path to leadership coaching is pretty interesting. And growing up in Nigeria, which is not around the corner from Atlanta, Kene has this stint as a missionary in Zambia, which is really profound to me, and then moved to the States in 2001, where he had the unique opportunity to study under leadership development guru John Maxwell, and kind of picked career development, personal development, professional development, and people development as a really sort of a life's mission, I would say. So today, Kene works with AEC leaders and professionals in all industries, really, to help these people lead with confidence, kind of find their true calling and sort of what works for them, and bringing their best selves into these interactions. So we are going to let Kene talk a little bit to our audience today about some of those things. And we're just really happy to have you on the show.
Glad to be here. I'm excited about this. So jump right in.
Well, let's start with talking a little bit more about your journey through Africa and your internship with John Maxwell, and tell us a little bit more about how those experiences shaped you and ultimately what led you to leadership development.
The big shaping, what really shaped me, going back to my family, seeing my parents and grandparents, the excitement they had for changing lives. I grew up middle income, so not like my parents were like very wealthy, but they loved to pay for people to go to school. Um, my parents loved to pay for, they call them seminarians. I grew up Catholic, and so they loved to pay for seminarians to go to school and just giving people opportunities, especially people from low income homes. And seeing the influence they wielded in our community because of what they did, not just because of what they had, made a big impression on me. And so I always say I was a kid who believed he could change the world. And one thing led to another. Serving as a missionary, one of my first roles was to start a campus fellowship at the University of Zambia. And I quickly learned that to make any positive impact, I could not do this on my own. And that was where the desire to, okay, how do I develop people to help me do this job? And that started to tie into something that I did not even realize was on the inside of me. So moving here to the States, to Atlanta, I was fortunate to get the opportunity to intern with John Maxwell's company. One of the vice presidents, Dick Wing, became my mentor and taught me so much. And so it's been taking one step and letting that step take you to the next step.
Yes, sometimes we don't exactly know how it's all going to come together. And then we wake up one day, 10 years later, and sort of realize there's like a stitching that has happened over time. So I always think it's fascinating when someone has the perspective of living on two sides of the world and just kind of a lot of differences, but then a lot of similarities as well about how just people function in general and what motivates them. And so speaking of motivation, you have mentioned to me that people development is your calling and that you feel like no matter how you present that in the world, that is sort of what you're meant to do and what you're meant for. And I guess at what point did you kind of say, either in your education or in working in John Maxwell's calling, that you really kind of knew that was the optimum thing for you?
I realized it was the thing that gave me the most satisfaction when I was a missionary. Back in Nigeria, I had a landscaping business. It was good, but not really fulfilling. As a missionary, I got to pastor churches. I did not like the admin side of being a lead pastor, but I loved developing people. There was just something on the inside that I was like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Be it in church, be it outside the church world. I have an interest in business, but I think I said it when you and I talked, Rachel. I can sell widgets, but I'm not excited about selling widgets. I'm not. But developing people just tugs at my heart. And going back to what I said earlier, I'm the kid who believed they could change the world, and seeing how generations were changed by my parents sending one person to school, and then the change in their kids and their grandkids. I realized that you change one person, you're not just changing that person, you're changing a generation. And so for me, that's what excites me.
For sure, there's a ripple effect there that is wider and deeper than that initial impact. One of the concepts that really stands out to us when you talk about your work is that concept of a leadership operating system. What does that really mean, and what should leaders think about themselves that way?
The leadership operating system is kind of like the foundation. I love to work at the core of things. It's just the way I keep things simple. What's at the core of good leadership? It's not just the skills, because I have seen people with good leadership skills who have made bad decisions, people with good leadership skills who have derailed in their leadership. And so as you start to dig deep, you find that there are certain things at the core that have to be there. And if you use one term, I would call it self-awareness. But what are you becoming self-aware about? what's at your core. The leadership operating system, the core is simply your identity, your purpose, and your natural ability. These are three things that I'd say come naturally to you. Identify them, become self-aware of those things, and learn to use them strategically so that you can build leadership skills on top of them. It's one of those Greek dudes, those Greek guys. Yeah, yeah, there's so many of those Greek sages that said, "Know thyself." But you have to know thyself. If you don't know yourself, you're prone to making so many bad mistakes.
Well, I think that's an interesting vantage point, and maybe Apollo or one of those Greek gods or something. But certainly having the unique characteristic of the person and building upon that is the mission of at least one of your books. And you and I were kind of talking about that and how you have seen a lot of different firms and a lot of different like types of professionals, but that over the years, particularly when you were working with our company, and then even since then, these like AEC experts, the technical experts that work in firms like accounting, finance, even law, those all kind of have similarities with architecture, engineering, and construction, because knowing your subject matter and doing your job well doesn't necessarily mean that you can communicate value and communicate expertise or even communicate your business process to your community, your clients, your teams, stakeholders. And so a lot of what we do at 3090 is try to help people see kind of beyond their own lens and to know themselves, but then also to know their audience, because you kind of have to have both to be able to send and receive information, whether that's at an event, whether that's written content, whether that is a huge ad campaign. And so I think there's like sort of this understanding of you and the receiver that is really a key part of communicating, especially for technical people. And you and I have talked a little bit about kind of getting into the hearts and minds of those types of people. So I want to just ask a little bit about what you've seen with technical folks and maybe some of the obstacles or struggles that are common when you're working with people who are kind of trying to enhance their leadership and communication skills.
The biggest obstacle, especially in the context of communication skills with technical experts, is that they are technical experts. It's like you're good, but your being good is what makes you bad, because they know so much, and you want to work with people that know so much, but because they know so much, they think the person to whom they're speaking wants to know all that they know. That's the problem. People don't give a hoot how much you know. People care about themselves. We're all selfish. I've got a problem. How are you going to help me solve my problem? I don't care about who you've worked for. I don't care the projects you've built. I don't care about all that. How are you going to solve my problem? And often, most people don't start with that. It's almost like they're trying to validate why they're in the room. And so going back to the world that we had both been in, Rachel, when an RFP is sent out, or if you made the shortlist, the client or the prospect knows you can do the job. Why the heck are you starting out spending 15 minutes telling them about yourself? They've done their research. Focus on what you are going to do to solve their key problem. That's the biggest issue that technical experts have, really focusing in on what's your problem and how am I going to help you solve that problem.
Yeah, I think we all struggle with that. You know, it shows up in how people operate on social media even. They focus so much on, look at all my wins, look at all the things that I did, rather than focusing on the pain points, the actual things that you're trying to solve for your customer. One of the other things we think about through communication is the difference between communication and presentation. And how do you explain the difference?
Communication is broader. Presentation skills is a subset of communication skills. Presentation skills means you are giving a presentation virtually in front of a room to 10 people, to 1,000 people, and it's time-based, 30 minutes, an hour, and often you have time to prepare. So anyone can be a good presenter if they learn the skills. There are simple presentation skills: organizing your content, getting to the point, telling good stories. There are a number of presentation skills that anybody can learn. The broader context of communication skills has to do with, in the context of leadership, or even relating with people, how you get your ideas across, how clear are you in telling stories, how clear are you in getting your ideas across, or casting vision. One thing people don't even think of as a communication skill: listening. Listening is such a big communication skill. Sometimes the most effective thing you can do for someone is listen. So communication skills are much broader. Same thing, anyone can learn communication skills, but there's just a lot more things you have to learn.
And a lot of this is sort of like learning the tools, having the tools in the toolbox. And I remember some very specific things from the training session that I did with your team a decade ago that I still use. And a lot of them are just simple, but it's just applying them and kind of having a plan always helps. One thing I want to talk about is that we did a simulation on that training session that day about a specific presentation. And I think using something real life is an easier way to teach people. And that's what we experienced, which was really cool. And part of going after pursuits, pursuit chasing is a good bit of work in the AEC field, and in a lot of technical experts. There's some amount of maybe RFP or interview process, and then sometimes you are on a stage of sorts having to relay information and gain trust. And so whether you're communicating or presenting, I feel like trust is inherently sort of the point of it. What really separates teams that are presenting in an actual pursuit format from, someone who's just like presenting information well and someone who's building trust? What have you kind of seen when sort of the light switch goes on? Maybe explain a few factors that you've witnessed.
You hit the nail on the head. Trust. The person who's listening to you, they're asking themselves, does this person care about me? Do they understand my issue? And are they focused on solving my problem? Or are they more focused on selling me on their company? If the person knows that your focus is solving their problem, you're building trust faster. And you get into that thing of, okay, if they feel safe with you, they will want to find out more about you. And it works whether you are, it's an RFP or even just talking with a group of people at a conference. It's all about, what can you do for me? Trust is the big currency right there.
I think one of the other things that these technical people struggle with when it comes to presenting skills, whether that's in an audience or at a conference or in a pursuit, is that they're not all extroverts, right? So they're used to being either behind a screen with their technical skills, or for a contractor, maybe that's in the field and more comfortable in a physicality versus an expressive modality. So what do you do with people who maybe aren't naturally charismatic, and how do you help them, communicate better without having to change their personality?
So I'll short answer, then I'll give an explanation, because there's something that I feel I need to correct there, which a lot of people say. Anyone can be a good presenter. Anyone. Now, extroversion, introversion, and this is a misconception a lot of people have. Extroverts and introverts have absolutely nothing to do with extroverts liking people or liking to be out front, and introverts being withdrawn. Extroversion and introversion have to do with how energy is gained and how energy is lost. Extroverts are energized by people engagement. Introverts are depleted by people engagement. So you can have shy extrovert and you can have outgoing introvert. But the outgoing introvert, they might have a bandwidth of, okay, I'm going to interact with people for 2 hours. After 2 hours, don't email me, don't text me, I don't want to see you. We're done. Okay, we're done. Now, in the context of presentation, communication, it has absolutely nothing to do with your personality. When people try to act out of character, that's where it gets into people say, wow, there's something inauthentic about this person. And trust starts to erode. And so I tell people, listen, be yourself. Be yourself. Whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, you can speak with good energy because nobody wants to listen to a boring person. Speak with good energy. Just speak with some life when you're presenting. Everybody wants to have a good time when they're listening to a presenter. The funny thing is that an interesting thing a lot of people don't know, a lot of actors, a lot of comedians, a lot of people that command stage presence are actually introverts because they're talking to so many people. It's not a conversation. So they can be on stage for 2 hours. After that, they're gone. They don't want to be at parties. They don't want to go network. No. So regardless of what your personality is, you can be a good presenter. Don't try to change who you are or how you are to do that.
Well, and I think energy is sort of an interesting point because Chris and I laugh a lot about we're both more battery filled by people and activities and events, and we don't get as drained. If you send us both to a conference for like a week, we sort of poop out at the end. But we are we can talk all day long and still be talking at dinner, and so we don't get drained as much as sort of the introverts. And I do think, as a generalization, people who aren't depleted can talk longer in public settings because they're just not having that sort of withdrawn moment. Although we all need rest, that is true. I think the interesting thing about sort of, just categorizing people who maybe get more battery refill in a quieter space is having good planning so that, like to your point about the comedian, when you're going to be on stage. And if you're prepared for that, then you can sort of time gather your energy points. I'm like imagining like Super Nintendo, 1995 or something. You have to like save the little battery so that you can be a good energetic version of yourself and show your personality in that way, and then also schedule to have recuperation time so that you are able to do that. And certainly the preparation and the comfort that comes with practice, and a lot of people don't want to spend time practicing. I know that practice is sort of a big thing that you have harped on in the past. I've seen it, and so people don't want to practice because it feels weird, but when you have practice, you are not so burnt out in the moment because your brain has kind of lived it a few times. And so I think that's like maybe an important point for anyone listening who does have a team who does pursuits or will be doing a pursuit, is really investing the time in knowing the timeline of how long you're going to be on a stage or in front of people, knowing before and after to schedule rest or practice, and kind of having a lot of thoughtfulness about it, because just because you know how to do the thing doesn't mean you're going to demonstrate that well in a room. And so I think having that foresight is almost more important than like the day of, because you've run it, you've figured out the storytelling, you figured out the handoffs. There's all these like little tools when you have a coach that can tell you, you're not just shooting from the hip. So I think that layer of practice actually makes this authenticity part easier
Right.
because it can feel more natural. So
Yeah.
I'm remembering some, my
I'm
little
I'm
my
like, oh,
training things.
you're making me proud. I'm like, oh, I did my job well. I did my job well. 10 years
Yeah.
and she still remembers
Yes.
this. It's,
Yes.
yeah. And the funny thing is, you can't imagine how many pursuit coaching sessions I've been in and they're pushing back or working with a GC or going in to do one of those sessions, and they always say, well, we don't have the time to practice. We don't have time. And then I always come back and say, well, do you have the time to earn the contract? Do you want the contract? Do you want the job? They're like, yeah, we want the job. Well, okay, you've got to make the time to practice. There's no shortcut. Absolutely, it's a $50 million project, $100 million project, and you say you can't spare 2 days to practice. Well, go figure.
Well, it's like a put your money where your mouth is situation.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's very true. Speaking of trust building and authenticity, AI is a really big topic
Mm.
lately. And whether you're developing content or representing your company, just kind of what are your thoughts about AI in the workplace and, just leadership in general with this new tool that is being widely used and is changing every day, and maybe just something that business leaders should think about in regards to AI from the last 6 months of what you've seen?
Yeah. Um, it's definitely changing the workplace and how we do work. But what I would tell people is, one, play with the tool, but trust your people more than the tool. And when I say trust your people, people get things done. People are the ones that represent your brand, not the technology. You have to put emphasis on the people, empower the people with the tools, and encourage your people to use the different tools out there. Figure out the tools that are relevant to your industry. Let them play with it. Pay for the enterprise version of whatever tool, be it ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it is. Play with it, but know that it's the human in the loop that drives your business forward. And it hurts me when I hear all these things about companies saying, okay, because of AI, they're eliminating 10,000 jobs. And then a few months after, they're like, oh, oops, we need to hire people.
Yeah, well, our joke, and we use AI a good bit, but our joke is like, the robots are still robots, and we use it to accelerate things, but it still has to
Yes.
have good inputs. We still have to correct it. We still have to do final edits. And so, Christian is a very big proponent of especially Claude tools lately, and we've used it not a
I
lot for
love
marketing,
Claude.
but a lot for like financial projections and sort of the nerdy side of running a business. So we do a lot with Claude does really well with spreadsheets. So we've been playing with it a lot, but it's still broken a lot of the times, and we're still fixing and teaching it, and who knows where we'll be in a few years. But I love just your reminder that the people are the ones who are the doers and the AI is the tool, and there's a happy line where we can use the people and the tool to get better outcomes, maybe more efficiently, but that we can't just, we're not on the Jetsons just yet. So we can't exactly trust all the robots to take over, at least not in our world. So every now and then something really weird comes out of AI, and we're like, well, at least we all have jobs for a while because that was not good. Well, thank you for that. That's some great feedback.
Yeah. The truth is, every technology that has come out there's been the panic of like, this is going to change the world. People are going to lose this and that. It's shifted how people work. But again, maybe this goes back to my faith. The earth was created for man, not for robots and machines. So man will always have a place. Human beings will always have a place. We have to make space for people to learn how to use the tools. And that will make them more efficient.
Well, speaking of people, heard you say you had a landscape company, and then I think maybe you also ran a moving company. So tell me a little bit about how those businesses helped shape and what lessons did you learn about customer service and people through operating those businesses?
Mm, interesting question. The biggest lesson I learned about customer service is it's not just about solving the problem. Great customer service is not about solving the problem. It's, yes, solve the problem, but great customer service starts when the customer feels like you care about them and you really want to solve their problem. Because you can solve the problem, but the person just feels like, okay, I'm 1 in 1,000,000. All right, it's just a job. Next. But when the person feels like, wow, this person really cares about me, it makes a big difference. As I don't know how many times you guys have moved, but
A lot.
moving is okay.
Yeah, we both moved a good bit, but Chris has an award in her office for how many times she's moved.
So you have it down pat, right?
Yes.
You've got a system. Moving is stressful. Moving is very, very, very stressful. And I realized that walking into someone's house to give an estimate, I had this opportunity to help them relax and feel good about the move. Because people are thinking about packing, will I get boxes? What am I going to do with cleanup? There's so much they're going through. But I learned to listen. And whenever they start to raise a big concern, I'll just say, oh no, this is how we'll take care of this. And you could just sense that level of anxiety and tension coming down to the point where they were like, they're actually excited about, the day of the move. You'd show up and they'd have coffee and all that waiting for you. So that for me was a big lesson. It's not just about solving the problem, but letting the person know that you care about them and you really want to solve their problem.
I feel like you're saying empathy, and not just showing up with the answer, but really being empathetic to the different levels of fear, concern, trepidation, all of those things. So
Yeah.
I love that. And I wanted to make sure we brought that in. And I do think that entrepreneurs of any type always have glimmers of takeaways that they've learned from their business life, even if they're in a different sort of business now. So that's a fun question to be able to ask you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever, in all the podcasts I've done, no one has ever asked me that question.
Well, we are professional question askers. So we walk around with a clipboard just asking everyone we know questions. It's sort of our favorite thing to do. So thank you for that compliment.
I love it.
Okay, so last big question. If there was one thing that any leader could do that's a small change tomorrow that would have a great lasting impact on their team, what would it be?
I'd say figure out the 2 or 3 people you will develop to replace you.
That's big.
It is. But figure out the 2 or 3 people you would develop to replace you, because if you have 2 or 3 more people who can do everything or as much as you can, you've increased the capacity and efficiency of your team, which has increased the capacity of the company. And so I always tell, whenever I work with leaders, I'm like, you have to make replacing yourself a priority. Work yourself out of a job. Now, not everybody wants to hear that, but that is true leadership. That is true leadership, replacing yourself.
That's powerful and a big part of using EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system that our team's been using and that we work with clients on, is sort of like a simplified version of building for the future, building for sustainability, and really getting out of your own way. And it is hard to delegate. It is hard to identify that next group of people. It's hard to stop and teach. It's hard to spend dollars on professional development. All of those things are hard. It's really, really challenging. And I've been doing a lot of reading about sort of that entrepreneurial transfer. And so I think it's really interesting that you brought it up today. I literally have, I think, 3 books I'm reading right now that deal with different things, and I see your bookshelf behind you. It's so simple, but it's so hard.
Yeah.
So I love that, and certainly you help executives with those processes, and so that's a great tidbit. So that concludes our Q&A session, and we have sort of a favorite part that we like to do at the end, where we ask a few rapid fire questions that are just sort of like top of mind. Give us like your quick feedback. Each one can just be a few seconds, but we'd love to just get to know you a little bit more. So Chris, take it away.
Well, you're in Atlanta, and so many of us end up in Atlanta for conferences. It is a huge draw for Atlanta. So when we're there, what is one restaurant, experience, or hidden gem that we need to make sure that we spend time to discover?
There's a restaurant I think it's in Claremont, right off of Peachtree Cab Airport. It's called 57th Fighter Battalion or something like that. It's on the runway. It's on the runway, and I don't know now. I hope it's still there because I haven't been there in a while. But it used to be somewhere we'd go like once a month. Sunday brunch. Oof. You just call an Uber because you'd pig out. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll have to check that out when we're in town next time. Yeah. Okay, next question. What is one leadership myth that you wish would disappear forever?
The leader knows everything. Most times the best leaders surround themselves with people who know more than them. So the leader doesn't know everything. The leader should not know everything. The leader should know their lane, but should also be confident enough to hire people that know more than them.
Valuable lesson. You've also coached hundreds of professionals. What's one word people use to describe great leaders that you think is entirely overrated?
Entirely overrated? One word that people use to describe leaders that is overrated. That's a tough one. You stopped me right there.
Maybe like one characteristic of leaders that's overrated and not as necessary as people think.
Yeah, that the leader has to be bold. That they don't have fear. That's nonsense. Often, a lot of leaders I work with they're scared. As the people they're leading, they're just determined to press on.
That's great. Yeah. Well, we have loved talking to you today, Kene. And for anyone listening, we would love to point them in the direction of finding out more about you. So can you share how our listeners can find you online?
Talentrevolution.me. www.talentrevolution.me. That's my website. And then you can look for me on LinkedIn, Kene Iloenyosi.
Wonderful. We will share the link in our show notes. We are so appreciative of your time today. It's great to just catch up with you and also to introduce you to Christian. And we cannot wait to see what your coaching business does from here. Thank you for giving us your insights on all professionals, but specifically AEC professionals. And hopefully we'll get to see you either on this side or your side at some point soon. We'll have to make that happen.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and good to meet you, Chris. And the last time we talked, Rachel, I remembered the name of the restaurant I told you where they had the alligator cheesecake. Giacomo's.
Yes, Giacomo's. Yeah, we were talking right after I spoke with you. We were laughing about funny Cajun New Orleans-y foods, and that thing that Kene was like, no, I can't go there. I can eat all the things, but that's just weird. And I agreed because I don't like alligator either, even though I'm a Louisiana girl. And Chris is a trained chef, so we talk a lot about food around here, and it's just weird.
Around like trained chef to marketing. Okay, that's another show. Well, that's an offline conversation. Yeah, the line is running.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. It was so pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. And I'm excited about what you all have ahead of you at 3090. Congratulations on what you guys have achieved. It's just amazing to hear the progress from the years when we met and when you left your last company. I'm just excited for you.
Thank you so much. It's been great, and we hope to see you very soon.
All righty. Take care.
Thanks for listening to The Comms Exchange, a podcast by 3090 Marketing. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss out on an exciting new episode. We'll be back soon with more stories and strategies from the field, because every breakthrough begins with a conversation.